I was talking to this person who worked for a business. It's a corporate client, and we were sitting there, and I was struck by the question that he asked me. He was stuck on, who told you all this? Who said it? Who was the person who gave you this information? And it really struck me because I had just finished telling him that no fewer than 14 people in the organization had raised questions about it. And it all sort of came to light when an email that he had sent out to a bunch of people was printed off and brought to the owner's attention, the owner of the business. And all this guy could think about was, who told you? Who talked? Oh, well, I guess I know who I can trust now. That's what he was saying. And it's interesting because, and it stood out to me for this reason. It really told me everything I needed to know. And here's why. Because it's something I see in a lot of people, but this was the most glaring example of it I've seen in a long time. It's not like the curiosity of how this happened isn't the problem. The problem is he's trying to solve inside problems with outside solutions, and that's something that all of us do. It's to some level often, and it doesn't work. It never does. It never will. So let me slow down a little bit here. I mean, you've probably never been in this situation at your work, but here's how this shows up for most people. Like sort of the real life patterns. It's like your relationship isn't working out like you want, so you try to change your partner. You feel stuck at work, so you update your resume and start looking for something else. You feel disconnected, so you fill your calendar and you stay busy. You feel anxious and nervous, so you eat and you drink and you scroll and you distract yourself. And so none of this is really wrong on the merits. It's not automatically bad or whatever. Sometimes, your job, it's like it's time to move on, and a new job is exactly what you need. But there's a version where there's a version of this pattern where the real problem is inside, and we're pointing everything out. Right? In the psychology world, we call that like locus of control, external versus internal locus of control. If you remember back to Psych 101, you probably talked about that. And I call it that, but also trying to put out an internal fire with an external hose, right? Trying to solve an internal problem with external tools or external solutions. So I'm really familiar with this and this really resonates with me because this is part of my story too. And here's a little bit of the story. This goes back 20 years ago. I was having coffee with this friend of mine named Tom, and he was about 20 years old, maybe 25 years older than me. And I was complaining. I was just in a tizzy, and I was this and that, and complaining about this, the wife and the job and the friends and the traffic and the person who's making me a coffee, whatever. And I was just running on and on and on, and he just sat there and nodding a little bit and sipping his coffee, and finally said, "What do you think? What do you think, Tom?" And he put his cup down on the table and said, "Clay, do you really want to know what I think?" I said, "Yeah, of course I do." And he took a deep breath and paused, real slow, which was his way. He said, "Clay, if your wife is your problem, you're fucked." And he went on to say, and if that's the case, there's nothing I can do to help you or anyone else. That doesn't seem right. Super defensive, The way he said it, he's just really calm about it. Like it was just such an obvious thing to him that it struck me and sat with me. I'm not sure I would put it that way to people, but it's what I needed to hear at the time. But here's what he was actually saying. It's taken me a long time to figure this out, or to really sort of put it together and really internalize it. The moment you make someone else responsible for your peace, you've handed them the only thing that you can control. You can be completely right about who let you down, and that still won't fix what's broken, or it still won't cure your dis-ease. It still won't create internal peace. So I said this to some people before, and they laugh at me, but I'm gonna say it here because it kind of cracks me up a little bit. But this is how ridiculous it is that we do this silly stuff that humans do. If you came to me and said, "I'm having a problem with my car," and I say, "What's the problem?" You say, "The tire's flat. Can you help me figure out how to fix it?" And I said, "Yes. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to meditate about it. We're going to do some breath work. We're going to do some affirmations about your flat tire. You would blink at me and wonder if I had a head injury, right? Of course, that's not going to work. Of course, you wouldn't try to meditate your flat tire fix. That's silly. It's ridiculous. But we do the exact opposite all the time. We have inside problems and we apply outside solutions. And we would never take an outside problem and apply inside solutions. The flat tire is an outside problem. Meditating or breath work or whatever, mindset or internal dialogue work, whatever. That's all inside work, our inside solutions. We change partners, we quit our jobs, we move, we buy stuff, we scroll on the phone, we achieve things, we collect money, we buy a fancy car, right? Because novelty, new stuff, change, that feels like relief. It feels like progress. Then the new thing becomes normal. It's no longer novel. It's no longer new anymore. And the feeling comes back because the flat tire came with us. We haven't done anything with the flat tire yet. The gap is still there. The problem is still there. It's still in here, and we keep looking out there. And this part's kind of heartbreaking. For the most part, these aren't lazy people that I'm talking about. These are people who are genuinely trying, just trying in the wrong direction. So anyway, my guy that I was having a conversation with last week, this poor dude, he's a great guy. He's a genuinely likable person. I genuinely like him as a human. And he's talented. He's sharp. He's smart. He works really hard. Brings extraordinary value to his organization. He's one of those people, and here's what the boss said, the owner of the company. She said, it's so easy to just rely on him because I say like, I wonder if we could do this thing. And then, 3 hours later, he emails me, done. I'm like, awesome. It's like freaking magic having this guy. But it turns out he was like, the cost of what he was doing is really high. He's steamrolling people. He's threatening people. He's, manipulating people, like picking at people, asking people a question over and over and over and over and over again. So finally people say, fine, I'll do it. I'll cancel my vacation to do this thing for you. For crying out loud, just stop talking to me. And he had this sort of sense of this edginess to him, which was valuable. But part of it was he sent out an email that it wasn't sexual in nature, but it was just it was in poor taste. And sent it out like, it's funny. And no, it was inappropriate, right? And so this all starts coming up, and people start kind of raising their hands. And people were hesitant to, because anytime in the past they've tried to get help from the owner, and this person found out about it, he retaliated, right? So we're on this call, and I'm telling him what's up, and I'm saying this has become a problem, and a lot of stuff is just in the last 24 hours, 48 hours has really come to. And we're on this call, and every single ounce of his energy goes out. Who told you? Let me explain the email. There's this thing that happened, blah, 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 the email. And in the context, I guess I know who I can trust on this team and who I can't, right? Not one flicker of, wow, more than a dozen people, more than a dozen of my coworkers have a problem with the way I do things. Maybe there's something, maybe I have a blind spot. Maybe my communication style is off. Maybe there's something about the way I see the world. Right? Whatever. None of that. Well, I guess I know who my friends are, right? That's the tell. Like, that's what it is. It's like, oh, you're a victim. That's not defensiveness in the moment. That's an existential worldview. And listen, again, he's not a bad guy. He's just never developed this muscle. And listen, I don't know his whole story. I guarantee you, though, I don't guarantee, but I would bet he's got some really bad stuff, right? That I don't know, maybe he hasn't fully worked through yet. He hasn't developed these tools, developed these muscles. So his career, his relationship, his reputation, all a function of what's happening inside him. And he can't see it. He legitimately can't see it. He's not lying. He's not being deceptive. He really can't see it. That's a victim mindset. And I want to be clear about this, because that's not a judgment, right? Because, there are real victims. And what I'm not talking about is like, somebody attacked you and, oh, you're acting like a victim. No, you really weren't a victim when somebody, attacks you. Maybe, and, because that happens, that's real. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about a victim mindset is more like making the external world permanently responsible for what's going on with you. And it's usually subtle. Sometimes and this guy wasn't so subtle, but in many people it's very, very subtle. And it's like every problem is something being done to you. Every setback is someone else's default. Every piece of feedback is an attack that needs to be offended against, right? There's no such thing as constructive feedback. There's just an attack. And it's hard to get out of. And here's why. Because it feel like you're just protecting yourself. Like, gosh, the world's coming at me. I got to protect myself. Know who I can trust now. Sounds like wisdom. Sounds like setting boundaries. That's not what it is. And the moment you, I don't want to say, as you get further into this frame of the world is happening to me, you're surrendering your own agency. That's the danger, right? You can't fix what you can't own. And you can't own what you can't see. This isn't a judgment. My buddy Tom, delivered it to me like a sledgehammer because that's what I needed at the time. So this client of mine, he's not unique, right? I mean, I've been there too. For a lot of us, this is the default. It's expensive. It has a cost to it. So what do we do about it? And it's not obsessing over our feelings, although feelings are really important, and like having some emotional intelligence is a really undervalued tool, I think, particularly in the business world. And it's not shutting down and losing the ability to function. It's developing the ability to pause, developing the ability and the habit of turning the lens around, turning the lens inward. Yeah, the guy asked me, who's telling you this about? Not what did they do wrong, not who's to blame, just what's happening in here right now. So what do we do about this? It's not navel gazing, and it's not obsessing over our feelings, although the feelings are really important, and developing a really strong emotional intelligence is critical here and in everything. And I think that having a high EQ is an undervalued skill, particularly in the business world. But just obsessing over our feelings isn't the solution. And it's not shutting down and losing the ability to function. It's developing the ability to pause, the ability to turn the lens around, turn the lens inward, and ask this question: what is this information telling me about me? What if I have a part in this? What if I'm the problem here? What if my behavior is the issue? What is my part in this? Those are the kinds of questions we need to be asking. Not what did they do wrong, not who's to blame, just what's happening in here right now. And this is a skill. This takes practice. Maybe some people do it pretty naturally, but for the most part, this is a skill we have to develop. And it's trainable. You can learn it just like any other skill. And there's this willingness to be wrong, I guess is how I want to say it. That's really important. This willingness to not care whose fault it is, not care who said what about who. It doesn't mean everything's your fault. That's not what I'm saying. But this is important. And the real power here is this: all you can really change is what's happening inside you, right? You can't necessarily change your feelings or your thoughts and those sorts of things. I mean, to a certain extent, you can. And you have agency there. You can't change what other people do. You can't change the economy. You can't change the weather. You can't change the person who's driving like an idiot on the highway. You can't change your partner's tone, whatever, right? But you can change how you respond to those things and how you react to those things. So my buddy, this client, and myself a few years ago were struggling with an external locus of control. We were, looking outward for solutions to what was going on inside us for our own disease. And it's not a character flaw. It's a default. I think that's how most people are. And it's part of, I think it's a holdover, like a natural nervous system reaction, like an evolutionary protective device, right? But now we're not running from predators. We're in relationships that are complicated. We have careers that are stressful, right? And we have what's going on in our own heads. The work is training yourself for a new default, to move away from the existing default to a new one. And the payoff is you stop being at the mercy of everyone around you. You stop needing the world to cooperate for you to feel okay. This is no small thing. It's actually everything. Next time something isn't working, pause for a minute before you build your case. Just stop. Is this a flat tire I keep driving on? Because what I want for you My wish for you is to not be someone to whom the world happens. I want you to be someone who happens to the world.